one little incident can severely change your psychology. What is the psychology behind all of that? Did you ever like dive deep into like what makes the human mind work in that kind of way?
Yeah, yes, and it's so important, and I'm so glad you shared that story about your friend
Yeah.
because it doesn't have to be a big incident. I will tell you that typically when you have something that's that deeply rooted, it typically happens between being in the womb and the age of 7. That's
Mm,
when we are most impressionable. The psychology behind that is this. The first 180 months of our lives is when we are most impressionable. That is when the brain is what's called alpha state. We call that the learning state. As a hypnotherapist, that's where we take people down to. And for deep work, we have to take them down to theta. So when we're looking at the brain, we have beta. Beta is where we are right now. We're alert, we're talking, we're having a conversation. You go into alpha right before bed and right when you wake up in the morning. And if you think about it, in the mornings and in the evenings, you tend to be more creative. You think of more things. And that's because you're going into that alpha brain pattern. And from there, we go into theta. Theta is a deeper brain pattern. And that's when you can do a lot of the deep work. Because what we're basically doing is we're shutting off the prefrontal cortex, which is our logic, our reasoning brain. We have to shut that down to get into the subconscious, which means you also are more suggestible. I'm sorry, not susceptible, but more suggestible. And the reason why this is important, especially working with people on hypnotherapy, is like, oh, you're going to make me quack like a duck. No, you're not that susceptible. We're not going to do that unless you
that's
would
like
know.
a stage hypnotist, right?
Yes, that's a state. That's like only if you would normally do that after a couple of, freedom shots, right? But anyway, so you go into theta. That's right before we get into delta. And delta is sleep. Delta is our restorative state. That's where the REM that you hear about starts. So the psychology behind it is that between being in the womb and age 7, we are typically in what's called the alpha state. By the time we're 9, we get something called the critical factor, and I won't go into too much detail on that. But that's what separates the thinking, the thinking logical brain from the subconscious.